only a transition to a different sphere of consciousness. Carol Ann is not like those she's with. She is a living presence in their spiritual earthbound plane.
Hello and welcome to episode 53 of the Talking to the Dead podcast. So it's been a couple of months, October the 23rd, since my last podcast. And I think I've had a good rest. Thank you very much for your patience. I am slowly getting back. And I think I need to explain to you a little bit about what happened and why I've been gone for so long. As you know, the last few episodes in October and September started focusing an awful lot on not only the nature of life and death and life after death and all the things I've discussed during the year, but it started becoming very much more involved with strange conspiracy theories which were related to this terrible feeling of impending doom that had come across me. I really felt that I was being closed down for some reason. I really don't know why, and I don't know exactly how to explain it beyond the feeling. The feeling was very dramatic for me. It certainly felt that somebody was trying to stop me from speaking. And I wasn't able to contact Titan. I wasn't able really to get that many impressions from dead people who wanted to come through and talk. I became so consumed, I think, with all the really dramatic world events that I became completely taken over by it all. And it actually started taking quite a toll on my health, to the point that I decided that I needed to make some really big changes in my life. I think this is also part of why it all happened, because I think I need to be in the very best physical and mental health going forward, and I think we all do. Because what is going to happen is still happening now. The great big things that I was worried about that were being passed through to me have not gone away at all. And in fact, and I will review that in a minute, many of the things that I was very concerned about are just as concerning now as they were before. In fact, a lot of the things have started to come true that were being revealed to me. What is the real purpose, do I think, of the reason that I needed to be quiet for a couple of months? I think it was very important for me to be able to step back and to see what was happening, because giving a weekly podcast just on a commentary of what was happening in the news really wasn't the purpose of my podcast. And yet, as I was finding, all the things concerning life after death were converging with all the things that seemed to be happening in the world in terms of strange sightings in the sky, the ever-present danger of a nuclear conflict or natural disasters happening in the world. Yes, all of the things that I've been feeling in October have pretty much come true, and I will talk to you a bit about that. Obviously, I was very, very concerned, as we all were, about any impending conflict between the rest of the West and Russia in terms of what was going on in Ukraine. Well, since that time, things really did get hot, and there were an awful lot of mentions in the press about various Russian officials, such as Medvedev and even Putin himself, threatening nuclear conflict. It got so bad that I think in November there was this point where a number of commentators were saying, I wonder if we're going to be here tomorrow. that was very, very concerning. Now, what was particularly interesting, at the particular point that it really was getting bad, people started noticing all over the world drones, as they were described, hovering over United States Air Force bases, United States nuclear weapons facilities, and various places that were clearly linked to the armament industry. Now, I don't actually know if the same thing happened in Russia or in China or in North Korea. But one thing I do know is that it happened in the United Kingdom, and my brother, who lives, as you know from previous episodes, in Suffolk, and actually a stone's throw from Rendlesham Forest, where the very famous Rendlesham Forest UFO incident happened. You can Google that if you like. But that happened a while back, and it's often called Great Britain's Roswell. And I've been to the site as well, and I've seen where the UFO allegedly was seen by American base personnel who went out to look for flashing lights and various strange things. Well, again, although a lot of the sites have been closed down now, like RAF Bentwaters and various other military sites which were owned, or leased, I should say, to the United States government, a lot of them have been closed. They've been mothballed, I should say, because they're still completely there, and you could fly a plane in tomorrow if you wanted to. They are closely guarded. Quite often you see black helicopters flying in the sky. But it was reported that Lakenheath, which is one of the operating United States Air Force bases, was buzzed repeatedly by drones in November. Now, not only was that made aware to me, I was also aware from one of my listeners that it was happening in Hamburg. I understand also the Ramstein base in Germany was buzzed. I've heard stories all over Europe. In addition, of course, most recently to what's been going on in the United States. But in November, it was happening in the United States as well. And I believe everything from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to places like Area 51, and you name it. I mean, they were being buzzed by unidentified flying objects, or unidentified aerial phenomenon, as it's been called. Now, the government then, as the government now in the United States and elsewhere, is not telling us what it is. They're saying they don't know what it is, which is even more worrying, because they say they know that it's not a threat. I don't know how they would know it's not a threat if they don't know what it is. And of course, as those of you who have been listening to this for a few months will know, that it's obviously not quite what it seems. Now, clearly, it would indicate that something is going on, probably interdimensionally, and these interdimensional beings decided to make themselves very known. That happened in previous times, and that was alluded to most recently, I think, in the Senate committee that was on live television, and I watched the whole thing. It's on YouTube as well, and also with the various people who came and sat in front of the Congress as well, I think a month before that. But most definitely all these people were talking about how this sort of behavior happened in history. It's been happening basically since the advent of nuclear weapons. And these nuclear silos where they're all stored in the United States have frequently been buzzed by unidentified aerial phenomena. And a lot of whistleblowers have come out, very credible people, and it was raised in front of the Houses of Congress as a potential security threat, because nobody is admitting who these people are, or which beings they are, or which dimensions they are, and does the government know, but is not telling us. So again, all of that's been happening, but with even more frequency. And then suddenly, in the last few days, it's hit an absolute pandemonium in America. And I was watching over the weekend governors from all over, or I should say mayors from all over New Jersey and various other parts of the East Coast of America are going on record and doing press conferences, asking the government to come out and say what it is. And they're all denying it still. The government spokesman who did finally come up said that they know it's not a threat. They know that it's not dangerous, but we don't kind of know what it is. And from all accounts, if you watch all the news channels that cover this, although it is only just being touched on the mainstream channels, it's mainly YouTube channels. But yes, it is on mainstream like CNN. They indicate that they're all coming in from the sea. So it's not as if they are taking off and landing on land. They seem to be swarming in. But they have extreme capabilities. They have the ability to stay in the air for hours, which everyone who knows drones knows that's completely impossible with the battery technology that we have now. But also they're much bigger than either industrial drones or commercial drones that you might buy for your home. Some have been described as big as SUV cars. And again, to have something so big floating around silently more often than not, and with lights on, some of them surprisingly with FAA navigation lights, which makes you think those may have been missightings, and they may well have been helicopters or aeroplanes or genuine drones. But many of them don't have FAA navigation lights, and they have all sorts of colors under the rainbow. And to add to that, their flight characteristics are being described as being out of this world. I've seen reports of American fighter jets being set to intercept these drones, and they cannot get near them. These drones are running rings around the finest aircraft that America has. And I think the same thing happened in the UK. As far as I'm concerned, it seems to really indicate that these are not terrestrial craft at all. So they're not Chinese, they're not Iranian, they're not Russian. Quite where they are is what they're all confused about. I'm not confused in my own mind, because we've had this discussion before, and it's been certainly passed to me that these are interdimensional visitors who are coming again as they came in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s to basically show their presence, because they want us to be aware that we're not alone and we share this planet, albeit in other dimensions, with a range of interdimensional species. And it's up to us to make sure that we take notice to that and don't start pushing any buttons that may destroy this Earth, because it could potentially have serious ramifications for all the dimensions. I don't know how that works in terms of physics, but it certainly seems these dimensions are all somehow connected and related. One thing that was quite interesting also in the last few weeks was an article that came out about Google that has released finally that it's been working on what it called the Willow chip. And they're boldly saying that this works as a quantum computer. I'm not a genius when it comes to this type of thing. As I understand it, they're saying that the Willow chip can access parallel universes, which is why it can be so fast, and it can do processing at quintillion speeds compared to an ordinary 0 and 1 bit computer. Now, for a quantum computer to work, you have to believe in quantum mechanics, and quantum mechanics is obviously something that is questioning our established science, because it's asking you to accept that things can be in two places at the same time, or many places at the same time, and that states can be multiple rather than single states. But it also opens up this whole dimension, pardon the pun, that you can access multi-dimensions. So it is science finally coming out and saying that we live in a multi-dimensional existence. So I found that particularly fascinating. But all of this is coming at a time where a lot of big things are happening in the world. As you all know, in the last few weeks, we had South Korea facing a coup, and the president calling for martial law and then now being deposed. You've had suddenly, with the victory of Trump, the United States of America facing a president who has promised to lay bare the truth as he sees it about various American conspiracies as he sees it. And again, you can watch Joe Rogan if you want to see Trump talking about that. But he talks about, he will open up the secrets about UAPs and UFOs, as well as, of course, the cases of who actually shot JFK. All of this can get a bit conspiratorial, but he's there and he's willing to release this information. So there must be some extremely nervous people in the American government system who have covered this up or have been part of a cover-up for a long, long time. So there is definitely a reason why various people in government now, between now and when Trump is actually sworn in, who want the American people to become more and more aware that something actually is going on out there, but they don't really know how to release that information safely to the public. Now, we've discussed that before. There are about 4 or so reasons why they won't release that to the public. Principally, I think, is because they're frightened of losing their jobs or even going into prison, and also having to admit that over the course of decades, they've been lying to the American people, and governments have been lying to their people all over the world. Companies don't want us to know, or other countries to know, what alien artifacts they found and what reverse engineering has gone on with this technology, and what modern technology these governments are possessing that has been built on the back of technology that was given to them by extra-dimensional beings. This sounds, again, quite fanciful. It's what they seem to call the Tin Hat Brigade. But by all accounts, there's an awful lot of technology out there that we don't know about, that is being developed or has been developed already by governments, that comes from extraterrestrial or interdimensional sources. So we have all of that. And then, of course, probably one of the big worries is that how will the people take it? If people suddenly have to confront the fact that we're not alone, I suppose they're a little worried. I mean, most people who know anything about aliens have got that information from Steven Spielberg or from other films of that genre, like Independence Day, and they worry that aliens are actually here to take our Earth away from us and, turn us into some sort of red mulch of food, or just to eradicate us, just so that they can move in and plunder our natural resources. That seems to be very much the narrative often in films. I would struggle to think of one film that I might know where aliens actually make themselves known and we live happily ever after. So that's a fear, because you can see what's happening in the United States already. There is genuine fear, and people may start taking things into their own hands, and particularly the armed Americans who may well start taking pot shots at UAPs or even aliens if they see them. And in fact, Donald Trump, I think, in a tweet on X, encouraged people to shoot them down, because I think he wants to basically get it out there. If there really are UAPs flying above us, we should be told. I think he probably knows more than he's saying as well. So, there's a lot of reason why it's been kept quiet, but I just don't think it can be contained. And Ross Coulthart of News Nation was saying, I think on Friday or Thursday last week, that he, in probably one of the most frightening sort of video podcasts I've seen him do, but he was saying, look, something dreadful is about to happen in January. He has a lot of sources. He's very connected. I think he also has to be careful, like a lot of whistleblowers have to be careful about what they say, because he doesn't want to be followed home. But he is saying that something pretty dramatic is going to be happening in January. Yes, it could be the culmination of everything that I've been talking about. It could be the fact that the public are going to be aware of it, and no matter what governments do to try to stop us being aware of it for whatever their good and bad reasons, it's going to come out. And I think it's probably because these interdimensional beings are fed up of the fact that the governments are not disclosing this information in any form of timely or sensible way. So there could be the argument that you're seeing all these drones. They could be very high-tech technology that the American government has, which it has gained from reverse engineering alien spacecraft. So, of course, to us, they would look magical because they are using a different form of technology from what we generally would see if we looked out the window. Now, why would the American government be doing that? It would certainly explain why they're not shooting them down, because it belongs to them. But why would they be doing that? Well, it's been suggested on a few sites that I've read and a few of the people who discuss these things, that it's actually it's part of a whole project now that the American government has to gently release this information that we're not alone and that there is technology in all of this alien disclosure. And it's kind of like getting us used to all of this. So when they actually do come out and admit that it's what it is, we're so used to hearing it and seeing it, it won't be such a shock. Well, that could be right. There is, of course, the real conspiracy brigade who believe that this is actually some great big deep space conspiracy. And there is a project they call Project Bluebeam, where I believe they feel that that shady parts of the government who do not want to release this information and who, if you believe it, really run the country or run the world, they want to create, if you like, a sort of a false flag scenario where they basically blame or create an impression that we're about to be invaded by aliens and launch all these drones and give us this feeling that we're going to be invaded in order to take away. Now this is very much, I think, the Trump fanatics scenario, but in order to basically justify martial law in the United States and for the rights of the people to be taken away from them. Again, I can't say that. I most definitely do believe that interdimensional beings are at the heart of all of this. I do believe that it's going to come out very, very soon. And I do believe that some of us, like myself, have been under attack because we can feel this kind of celestial battle that's going on between dimensional beings and the governments as to whether this disclosure is going to be allowed. So what happened to me, and I'm not alone, a couple of people who correspond with me have felt the same, is that we felt this need really to get very healthy and to try to fight this psychological onslaught that was being sent to us. Now, again, I'm sorry to sound like a conspiracy theorist again, but it is very true that the CIA, for a huge amount of time, was involved in mind control techniques in the 50s and the 60s. They are known. These things are all out there now. They've been involved in remote viewing technology. They've been involved in trying to influence people's thoughts. They've been involved in trying to alter people's perceptions. So all of this has happened before. So there's no reason why they wouldn't still be able to, and probably with even more efficacy, be able to try to control people's minds. Now, my podcast goes out to many thousands of people every week. I can't say that they're necessarily targeting me specifically, but I think there were probably attempts at trying to suppress anybody who's coming out with some sort of explanation as to what is going on. I believe that, and I did feel it suddenly, and it was pretty debilitating. So I decided that the best way to combat this was to take a rest, which I did for 2 months. But during that 2 months, I've been on an incredible diet that has enabled me to lose about 12 kilograms. I stopped drinking alcohol completely about, I suppose it must have been about August now. And I'm never touching it again, because now I realize just the effect that alcohol has on us. It's something, when you don't drink alcohol, you look around and you think, my God, it's everywhere. It's on every street corner. It's a really radical drug that does affect your mind, no matter how little you drink. And it's an incredibly easy way for any nefarious powers, if they wish to get some influence into you. Now, I think that came to me in a previous podcast when I was warned about using psychedelic substances, that psychedelic substances are very dangerous because they do open your mind up to being attacked, but also to being accessed by less than nice entities. And in the same way, taking any form of drug, whether it's alcohol or marijuana, is doing that to your mind. It's allowing your mind to be opened up, and then for people to fill that void with whatever they want to fill it with. So I'm very, very careful now about making sure that I'm eating properly. I'm not overweight. I've stopped taking all my medicines that I was taking for various reasons, because I'm completely healthy now, and my blood pressure is normal. All the various sort of measures that a doctor would give are normal. And I've never felt healthier. And I think that's important. I think we all need to really be careful and be healthy at this point, because then we can protect ourselves from any outside interference. The world leaders and a lot of countries have obviously also felt something is up, and things have been changing in terms of their perceptions. I mean, I don't think it's any great surprise that in the last few weeks, you've seen the fall of Bashar in Syria. This is something that's been rumbling on for years. There was really no particular reason it should suddenly happen now, but it was almost like one day to the next. This rebel group managed to control Syria. It's no surprise, I think, that Zelensky is talking very urgently about some sort of peace plan. Obviously, he wants a peace plan that justifies all the carnage that has happened in his country for the last nearly 3 years. But peace is something they're talking about. It's probably no surprise that the rhetoric in Russia has really been dialed down. I mean, you're not hearing the same sort of rhetoric from the hawks in Russia that you were a few months ago. And now you wonder why all this is sort of happening. What have these governments been told? What is happening out there that people now are beginning to be careful about exploding this earth of ours? I don't think it's any great surprise. A lot of stuff is coming in science. I mentioned to you the willow chip, but also suddenly people are talking a little bit more about what is going on at CERN in Switzerland, which is the huge, large hadron collider, which for years we know has been splitting atoms, or at least bombarding atoms together in order to create very exotic new particles such as the Higgs boson. But it was revealed last week that that's not actually all that they're up to, because they've been aware as well that in the quantum state you have that ability to access parallel universes. And of course, most of the stuff that I'm sure is going on in these scientific research stations is being closely guarded as a secret. It's all being paid for by governments. And of course, you wonder quite what they've managed to achieve that they're not telling us. There has been indications that they may have even been able to create a minute black hole, and are analyzing it and understanding the physics of what happens in a black hole. And of course, we know that if you can actually start mucking around with black holes and gravity, you can then start mucking around with space and time. And then you can muck around potentially with time travel, or whether it's going into the past or going into the future. So there's a lot of information that they must be finding out, as well as perhaps being able to peek into alternate dimensions or alternate timelines. again, all of this it always surprised me, why governments were prepared to spend billions or trillions on this technology, for apparently what? Well, it'll all become a little bit more obvious, I think. And if all that wasn't enough, I think, it's showing to me how human science is finally admitting that there are things that it cannot explain with traditional science, and that quantum science, which now appears like magic, is not magic. It's just a form of science that rules the interdimensional worlds, and it's very close to spiritual. And in fact, it is spiritual. It's the only likely explanation. And the reason I love it, and the reason I think it's so fantastic at the moment, we're so lucky to be living in this time, is that finally all of us who believe in this stuff are able to come out of the corner, and we can take our tin hats off, and people now are beginning to listen, and people are beginning to realize that we're not all completely crazy. And I'm not talking just about people who believe in UFOs or that sort of stuff. I'm talking about people who are religious, people who believe in God, people who are Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Jewish. All of that is now going to be recognized as somehow connected to all of this, and everything comes from alternate dimensions. And I think for a while, probably, the Roman Catholic Church has known that. And again, something happened last week which piqued my interest, that apparently there is within the Vatican museums or archives or something, there is knowledge that's been recorded of various technologies that have been invented that enable people to look at the other dimensions, whether it's in the past or potentially in future dimensions. And that all exists within a religious context. And it was alleged that that's because the church has always had a tremendous vested interest in knowing what's going to happen and knowing exactly what happened in the past. Fascinating stuff. And I like that my podcast has always been about what happens to us after we leave, if you like, this dimension and move to the next dimension and higher dimensions. So obviously the idea of aliens traveling through light years of space to reach the Earth is completely and utterly stupid and the stuff of science fiction. The reality is that aliens are here already, and they're multidimensional beings that make themselves known or not, as the case may be, and have been here since the birth of the planet, and will continue to live alongside us, although we can't see them mostly at the time, but sometimes we can. And obviously when we die and we leave this earthly dimension, we then can see them and we can mix with those different dimensional entities. Those different dimensional entities were made known to me in one of the episodes because there were groups who were looking after war and peace on this planet, because they're not distinct from us. These entities living in different dimensions are extremely concerned what we do in this dimension, and are actively involved in keeping an eye on us to make sure that we don't destroy it and mess up the party for everyone. And I think this is exactly what's happening right now as we speak in the United States. I know that for sure because it's being reported, but I believe it's happening probably all over the world. So I think then, as we move towards the end of 2024, and this will be my last episode for this year, I believe that we are moving towards some great reveal. I'm not at all anxious. I'm not at all worried about all the things that I've said, because it's all been proved to be correct. There's really nothing that's been revealed to me in the last few months that is not happening now. And I have faith that as long as we stay healthy, and that we're not being invaded by people who are trying to distract us or turn something that could be genuinely good for mankind into something that they want to control because they're fearful of losing control. As long as that doesn't happen, I think we're in for a good time. So finally, before I leave you for 2024, I just want to tell you about how I will probably start the podcast next year, Series 2. Again, I was wondering what would be next and how would I do it next. And as I suspected, it came out of nowhere. And it came actually from a couple of people who've been listening to the podcast who wrote to me. And one young lady, particularly in Austria, who wanted to ask me all sorts of questions. And I thought what would be great fun, and it just popped in there, was why don't I turn it more into a sort of an interview show where I can actually talk to people who want to speak to me. So if you like, it's probably becoming more like your traditional psychic medium show for a while, where people who really do want to make contact with people who are passed on or in other dimensions, depending on what you want to believe, I can then do it not so much live, because it won't be live by the time you hear it, but it will be live with me talking to them. And I obviously will record that, and that'll become the basis of the podcast. And I've got a couple of people who are quite interested in doing that already. I have to sort out the technology of it all, using Zoom, I suppose. But I think I'll try doing that. And I really would encourage people who listen to the podcast, if you're really interested, please email me on the email that's attached to the podcast, and let me know, and then we can perhaps set up a call and do something live. I think that would be great fun. Beyond that, I'm sure more will be revealed in the next few weeks that'll enable me to talk further. So yes, that's really it for now. I hope you all have a lovely Christmas or whatever your religious festival might be, and lovely New Year's, and I'll see you in January. And please don't worry, as I've said to you before, we're so lucky that we have interdimensional beings that are out there looking after our interests. So no matter what interests are fighting against us and against revealing their presence, I do believe that this war is being waged at the moment, and I believe it's being won by the interdimensional beings. Surprise, surprise. They want us to know what's going on. They feel that we're ready to be told. And as I'm hearing on the on YouTube and various news channels, the American people and the peoples around the world increasingly just do not want to be treated by children anymore by their governments and lied to. They want to know the truth. And they want to know what the technology is that's been given. And if it enables us to have limitless free energy, fantastic. If it enables us to travel time and space, fantastic. Whatever it might be, I don't think it can be anywhere near as bad as the alternative, which is basically a world that is fighting and killing and potentially going to blow itself up and destroy this wonderful planet. So I'm very, very optimistic. And the tremendous catastrophe, this cataclysm that I was foreseeing, has happened already. And we've come through to the other side intact. We're now dealing, if you like, with a peace treaty between the forces that don't want this disclosure and the huge, I think, overwhelming forces on the other side that make it totally inevitable. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.